Om Amriteshwari Namaha. Pranams at Amma's lotus feet. Pranams at each one of you who are here. It's indeed a great opportunity and honor to be here to discuss about what the country needs to what the whole world needs. I am representing the Sustainable and Resilient Communities Working Group with the focus of climate, environment and net zero targets. This working group majorly seeks to analyze and propose enhancements that are relevant and strategically aligned with both developing and so-called developed countries to achieve climate justice, measure the impact of existing interventions that address and reduce the risks and increase resilience in face of future climate environment crisis. Look at the best strategies and practices to reduce the tragedy of the commons through multi-stakeholder engagement and propose enhancement and context-specific fine-tuning of policies that could strengthen the initiatives required for building sustainable and resilient communities. Let me just come over the guiding vision from our chair, Honorable Chair, Hamma. Everyone in the world should sleep without fear at least for one night. Everyone in the world should eat to their fill at least for one day. There should be one day when there is no violence, no one is injured, no one is harmed. All people, young and old, should serve the poor and needy at least for one day, serve selflessly. This is Amma's dream, this is Amma's prayer, and at least this small dream be realized. So this working group is focused on how we can have deliberations and dialogues and see where are the gaps and how we can bring up strategies to help the G20 countries and other countries all around the world to work together with all the CSOs to achieve this. From Amma's vision itself, it is very clear that the world needs to look into the climate adaptation, disaster risk reduction and resilience, food security, ecosystem restoration, climate justice and social justice, compassion-driven action. Based on this, the four sub-thematic areas of this working group are climate resilience and social justice, environmental sustainability, net zero emission management, compassion-driven approaches. We are very happy to have sub-theme groups and sub-theme networking groups from the CSOs who are actually deliberating and dialoguing to bring out all the necessary outputs for this game. What we are looking forward is experience that is community-centric, which is the E for Life, where we are looking at how we can work together with the CSOs and other stakeholders to bring out the experience they have when they have lived and learned what from the work they have done with the citizens and the community, what are the challenges and the opportunities they have seen. How did they embrace the culture, the values, the systems and the challenges in the communities, and how did they engage with the individual, the group, community, CSO, regional government bodies and United Nations to achieve what is needed for them and thus empowering themselves, community and stakeholders. So what we want, we also urge to each and every CSO here to work so that we can connect to each other, network and bring out your experiences and also the gaps in it so that we can propose and work together for a society which is sustainable and resilient. The working group objectives will look into identifying the gaps in building sustainable and resilient communities, in-depth engagements to unveil the existing policies, strategies, interventions and solutions, solicit recommendations and propose pathways for designing sustainable and resilient communities that can adapt to dynamic climate variability, environmental sustainability and net zero emissions. Along with that, how we can collate and showcase best practices prevalent in a multicultural perspective, propose scalable models that could be adopted by G20 countries to build a sustainable and resilient future. That is one of the major aim which we are looking into it. How can we bring out the scalable model that can be taken forward so that more and more communities can become sustainable and resilient. So we will be reviewing the baseline of climate action and resilience building for policy entry points for socio-economic transformation, facilitating the social engineering for mobilizing CSOs for transformational change for humanity through Vasudhaiva Kudumbam, synergizing the initiatives of CSOs from G20 member countries and invited countries for strengthening resilience of stakeholder groups. As I earlier mentioned, these are the 4 working groups which are working with climate resilience and social justice, environmental sustainability, net zero emission management, compassion-driven approaches. These are the working coordinators. Along with me, I have Professor Vinod Menon, he is also here, International Coordinator and Regional Director, Asia for TIMS, Oslo and Brussels. Dr. Adi Shivan, who is the International Coordinator for Amriteshri Foundations. The International Executive Committee, who is really guiding us through, is Dr. Rajiv Shaw, from Professor and Graduate School of Media and Governance from Kyoto University, Japan. Care Harald Drager, the President of the International Emergency Management. Dr. Piju Pijuno from Pijuno Center, Indonesia. Dr. Salimul Haq, Founder Director, ICARD of Bangladesh. Professor Anand Padvarthan, Professor, Senior Fellow, University of Maryland. If I go deep into each of the sub-themes, let me just go into climate resilience and social justice. The focus of this sub-theme will be on addressing the interlinkage of climate resilience and social justice, where we are looking into how can we bring in an all-inclusive approach by transcending the inequalities based on gender, ethnicity and socio-economic aspect, and very special focus on vulnerable sections and indigenous populations. And climate financing, which is another major aspect which is need of the hour, looking at just and equitable transition, climate commitments and financing, operationalization of the laws and the funds. Mitigation and adaptation, with redefining mitigation and adaptation strategies with focus areas on environmental stewardship programs, intergenerational equity, uphold procedural and substantive rights. So how we are looking into is we are working with collaboratively with the CSOs who have shown interest during the networking events, and it is getting enlarged with Kansas actually, and also Mira Foundation, Dharma Life, MHT, WWF, etc. on building resilience in climate changing climate with strategy solutions and collaborations. Sustainable finance, uncovering the linkage between climate change and disaster and equity in action. The second sub-theme is environmental sustainability, which everybody knows is one of the major things, and these 2 sub-themes are very interlinked also. So where our focus is going to be more or less on nature-based solutions, because that is something which the community can own up and they can take forward. So they will explore the nature-based solutions to address the societal and environmental challenges, holistic approaches such as mangrove plantation and indigenous seeds, etc., ensuring water, energy and food security. The most important thing is how do you empower the community to make it happen. Agricultural ecology, herbal medicine and species, organic farming, green economic recovery with sustainable solution and practices, eco-friendly solution, non-timber forest produce, community mobilization for inclusive and participatory. And also look at the holistic approaches, where how do you bring in the concept of sustainable production and consumption patterns. That is one of the major things which we need to bring in each and every community member. And how can you bring in that transformation? And investment in renewable energy, how each of the country, even though they have progress, there is much more we need to know by engaging the community. Protection and restoration of natural ecosystems, systems thinking approach, aquaculture, solar fencing, etc. Participatory community approaches. This is a foremost one, and which needs naturally developing methodologies which is very focused with respect to the local needs and their social systems. We have to build it by understanding that. So community level awareness and education, strengthening citizen science and need for gender mainstreaming. So here we will be working with actually on the with Mobibus Foundation, and we also working with the WWF. So where we are, and several other CSOs are there, where we are looking into preserving life on earth, the importance of biodiversity conservation, feeding the growing world sustainably, circular economy policies on waste management, very big focus on that, how can we have waste to wealth. The role of agriculture in promoting environmental stewardship. Another major area which we are looking into is ocean conservation, where we are looking into the preservation and conservation of ocean ecosystems, ocean conservation laboratory, monitoring of the ocean, and at the same time, how are you looking into the international and transboundary collaborations for ocean governance and protection of vulnerable coastal communities, working very closely with respect to India Meteorological Division, INCOIS, and also with respect to UNESCO, UNDRR also. The third one is the net zero emission management, where we work with energy sources, supporting community-led microgrids, transition to affordable green energy, energy efficiency across the value chain, sustainable lifestyles and circular economy. Naturally, I think we will have overlap here with other working group. We're addressing the challenges of developing and least developed countries, sustainable lifestyle with less emphasis on emissions, last mile outreach, circular economy and waste management. And focus areas will be on research and waste management, reducing emissions through electric and hydrogen vehicles, meeting industry's energy and fuel needs by renewables and clean technologies, bringing renewables and sustainable practices, life cycle based advocacy, strengthening in the regulatory aspects also. So here we are working with Asian Youth, Vasudha Foundation, Kansas, etc., where we are looking into decarbonization transport with technologies, challenges with inclusivity and connectivity, looking at circular economies for net zero transitions, decarbonizing construction infrastructure, materials, technologies and community-led adoption, a net zero emission lifestyle, new paradigms for development, technology integration, finance and adoption strategies for addressing net zero emission, and sustainable technologies, transitioning to renewable electricity and renewable integrated grids, sustainable financing. The fourth one is the compassion-driven approaches to sustainable and resilient communities. As our Honorable Chair Amma has mentioned, the true compassion is the ability to see and know what is beyond. Only those who have the capacity to see beyond can offer real help and uplift others. Compassion is right understanding with a deeper knowledge of the person, the situation, and what he or she truly needs. This is the theme which needs to actually closely knit all other sub-themes. And in this, we are looking into it as compassion as the driving force for volunteerism and civil society engagements, compassionate pathways for sustainable and resilient communities, so building in an educational framework and a global curriculum so that a larger group of youth can be empowered to build the sustainable future through this curriculum itself. Compassion for conflict resolution and peace building, frameworks driven by compassion where engagement and better risk governance mechanism can be brought in. So here we will be looking into compassion as the cornerstone for community and local development, compassion-based pathways for education, sustainable technologies and mitigating emissions in agriculture, compassionate pathways for resilient communities. So we have more than 500 plus CSOs with 57 countries with outreach of 1,000 plus participants from 40 countries and networking events and policy dialogues. And these are the, I'll quickly finish. Yeah. These are the 3 engagements where we are looking at the acts of compassion as the campaign for extraordinary stories, policy recommendations. We are calling for submissions to C20 India, 2023, and call for submission for best practices. We have also has been fortunate to do the Sea Chowpal, the compassion-driven Chowpal in 800 villages in 18 communities, which is extending to the different countries also. And as future, we are trying to build as a sustainable and scalable model, able to collaborate with other T20 and other also towards. So with T20, we had event with respect to towards the resilient South Asia, and policy roundtable for technology integration, finance and adoption strategies for addressing net zero emission management. We also have looked into it, the dialogues which will look into critical gaps and policy entry points for strengthening sustainable and resilient communities, business and its interface, net zero emission targets, compassion as the driving force for volunteerism and civic, and research and development of autonomous mobility and electric vehicle technology, majorly looking into building resilience in changing climate and transition to renewable energy and integrated research. These are some of the CSOs who are closely working, more than 500 plus CSOs are there. They have been networked into different sub-themes and they are working together to bring out the solutions, and a larger team is working for all this, and all of us together are trying, and we look forward for each of your suggestions to take forward. Thank you everybody. Bye.